What is up, YouTube? This is JR Juggernaut 1, and this is going to be a deck profile video, but not your ordinary deck profile. No, this is going to be a profile of my Tengu Plants deck that I've been using for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to be profiling tomorrow, and I'm also going to be giving you a contest update video because the prizes have changed a bit, and I'm also going to make just a few announcements regarding it, and just hopefully getting some assistance with it. If any of you guys are willing to help, please, I beg of you. But no, this is a deck that I'm sort of considering running for Nats, or I guess I'm going to run some version of it in Nats. It is my Quick Doppel deck. It is a deck that I've been working on over the past week or so. It is a very powerful deck, and I've been having a lot of success with it on the dueling network, which I'm not saying necessarily makes it a good deck, but I've been doing well against all different types of decks, and I think the success of it does mean there's some potential success for it in the future. So basically, the deck revolves around spamming Hyper Librarian and synchroing as much as possible in order to push for game, stuff like that. Most of the time when I win with this deck, it's because I just synchro a bunch of monsters and swing at my opponent for game. It is very, very enjoyable. This deck's a lot of fun, so I hope you guys enjoy looking at this list. I will leave a list for it in the box below, and you guys can look at it from there. So I'm going to talk about it, and I'll try to briefly get into each card. Now, first thing I want to say is you'll notice there are two cards that are not in this deck that are kind of off-putting, I suppose. The first one is Lone Fire Blossom. Now, Lone Fire Blossom I found helpful in a previous build of this deck, I should explain. But Lone Fire Blossom is not so good. It's good, but the problem I have with it is that it doesn't really create any broken plays with it. You're not going to be trying to revive it and go for first turn shooting star play. You're going to be focusing more on synchroing for Hyper Librarian and doing plays of that nature. Lone Fire Blossom is not going to make those plays much better. It's great that it can take plants from your deck, but you have ways of getting them to the grave even without it. So I don't think it's a big deal in retrospect. I don't think it's so important. And the other card is Debris Dragon. Now, Debris Dragon, there's nothing wrong with it, but the problem is it's just not really that worth playing in this deck. It doesn't even. The problem is spamming with the Dandylion tokens is nice, but it can at times make it harder for you to push for game because of the fact that it just produces these tokens that you can't get around. And on top of that, it doesn't help really make any awesome combos other than the ones with Doppel, like going for Trish or Scrap Dragon. I think that's good, but I don't think that necessarily means it has to be played. It's more like I feel like it's a good card, but I don't think it's the card you want to play if you want to maximize the power of Librarian. Next, we have 3 Junk Synchron. Sorry, I haven't even got to the deck profile yet. Wow, it is late. But let's get to the deck. So we have 2 Quickdraw Synchrons, which obviously most people don't like anymore, but I personally think it's still a good card because you have plenty of good discard fodder, and there's also the fact that you have multiple ways of searching for it, and it's very useful when you think about it, just because you could go for Hyper Librarian, and this card just makes it very easy to just draw more cards and bring out more synchros, and that's very important in this deck, obviously. You need cards like Quick Draw. Next, we have 3 Junk Synchron and 3 Doppelwarrior, which kind of obvious, but I'm running the max of each just because they're the most important cards of the deck, so I feel like it's good to run 3. So you don't have to deal with other decks, you may or may not want to cut it down to 2 each, but honestly, given how important they are, I feel like running 3 is just the best idea at this point. Let's see, you've also got, next we have 2 Ryko and 1 Lyla as your Lightsworn engine for draw power. Again, I don't think 3 Ryko is so necessary when you're not really taking it with Junk Synchron very often. And Lyla is just awesome when you have Spore, Global, something like that in Graveyard, so I like it. Next we have Level Leader, which is pretty busted in this deck. It allows you to go for any synchro. It can help make instant formulas, which are always good, and it can also combo well with cards like Quickdraw and Scrap Dragon. So it's, yeah, very good. Next we have Dandylion, because obviously it's awesome. 2 glow bulbs. Now this is also a very eye-rolling card selection. I'm running 2 of this card because since glow bulb is so important, it's for the best that you actually run 2. 2 glow bulb is, it can be dead at times, but it's more efficient because you're more likely to have that glow bulb in grave and set up the huge plays with Librarian. So yeah, that's just how I look at it. Next we have Spore, because you're running plants. You have 3 plants you can remove for it. Great. And because Dandelion isn't so needed in this deck, there's not much to abuse out of it. You don't have to feel so bad about removing it if you want to make it a level 4. Next we have Sangan, because Sangan just searches for almost everything, especially the combo pieces. 2 Chaos Sorcerers, because you run plenty of darks and lights, and also the fact that it's just a 1 card answer to almost any monster your opponent plays, and I really like that. And then you could just synchro with it and make a lot more use out of it. Next we have 2 Effect Veiler, because Veiler is going to be so important in Dex format. It is ridiculous. It's once Librarian comes out, you're just going to want to have 2 of this in your main deck. It's going to be basically a staple, and I really feel strongly about that. Next we have 1 Dark Armed Dragon, because Dark Armed is just nuts. I didn't think it would be very good, but honestly, I get it out so much in this deck. It is awesome. There are late game, it's not very good, but it's actually pretty easy to set up for it. So definitely an awesome card. Most of the time when I draw into it, it's live, or I can make it live pretty easily. For the spells, we have 2 tunings, so you can search out for Junk Synchron and Quickdraw. 1 Pot of Avarice, which I may bump up to 2, but 1 Pot of Avarice is kind of fine. You don't need to rely on Pot of Avarice so much. I'm tempted to try and bump it up to 2. I'm gonna see what happens, but definitely run at least 1, even though the OCG builds will run 1 or even none at times. 1 Rhoda, because 6 targets, you really gotta run it. 1 Allure of Darkness, you've got about, I believe it's 10 darks, so only makes sense you play this. Monster Reborn, Book of Moon, Charge of Light Brigade, 1 for 1, Foolish Burial, Giant Trunade, and 2 MST, because 2 MST is going to be essential, just dealing with those back rows that shut your whole deck down, or just maybe cards like Necro Valley, Dragon Ravine, cards you just want to get rid of, as they're permanent and you can't deal with them with other resources, with other cards in your deck. For traps, we run 2 Trap Stun, 2 Warning, 1 Torrential, and 1 Solemn Judgment. I'm running 2 Trap Stuns because of the fact that this deck is all about making the big combo plays, and Trap Stun just makes it that aspect of it much more effective. It's not gonna be good against every matchup, but it's gonna be good against your worst matchups for sure, because then because if they're running a lot of traps, they might have a card that stops this right on the spot, but they may also not have any way of dealing with it, and it might work to your favor. 2 Warning, because you're not running many traps, and the more I play this card, the more I feel like it's just needed at 2. It's going to be needed at 2 when you go to Nats, because this card is unbelievably good. Just especially like when you're playing a deck like 6 Sams or Black Wings, and you have this awesome field setup. If you have Warning face down, they are pretty much screwed. Torrential, because of the fact that this card, that if you don't have many monsters out, that it's fine, because this, you chain Torrential, you might have something like Dandylion, Level Leader, Sangan, Glow Bulb, etc. on the field. It's not going to hurt you as much as it hurts them. And finally, Judgment, because it just negates everything. Some players don't really like this card. I like it a lot, honestly. It just makes pushing for games so much easier, and there will just be those times where your opponent has one back row and you have Solemn face down, and they're just like, they got nothing they can do about it, honestly. But, so yeah. Oh, and of course, you guys probably also noticed I'm not running Darkhold in this deck. Well, believe it or not, Darkhold isn't actually very good in this, in these types of decks, in these Junk Doppel decks, I've found. Apparently, Darkhold isn't very good because most of the time you're getting enough, you're trying to get resources out. It's not going to be very good at dealing with your opponent's monsters and everything, because you're most of the time going to have so much of a field presence that playing it is going to be a losing for you. So, yeah, I would really recommend it. Extra deck is pretty straightforward. I only run 2 Librarian because because of the fact that it's just not a card you're going to spam at 3, and I wanted to make more room in my extra deck. I'm only running 3. I made 3 spots dedicated to cards I could sync for with Quickdraw. I decided to put in Doppelwarrior because it's really good, Junk Berserker because I could get with Junk Synchron at its level 7, and Junk Destroyer because I could also get it with Junk Synchron at its level 8. So more or less, the only monster I can only get with Quickdraw that only can be used brought out with Quickdraw is Doppelwarrior, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. The other cards, it's pretty there's nothing else really worth mentioning. This is just a very fun deck. I certainly recommend you guys try it out for yourselves, put your own twist to it, because I'm happy with the results I've been having with it when I put my own spin to it. Aspects of it might change, as I said, but it's right now a 41 card deck, so it's kind of hard to just all of a sudden go, oh, I'm going to make space for this and such. It's difficult. There's only so much room you can make, you know. But ultimately, I think I'll have a good build of this deck figured out. I hope you guys enjoyed, and this is Jared Juggernaut 1 signing out. Peace.